Welcome to Wordpath, the show about Oklahoma Indian languages and the people who are teaching and preserving them. Our program tonight is about the language of the Apache tribe of Oklahoma. This week I visited with Alonzo Chalepah at the tribal headquarters in Anadarko. Let's take a look at the first section of the tape where Alonzo introduces himself and his tribe and clarifies the relationship between his own tribe and the Chiricahua or Fort Sill Apaches, as well as other Apache-speaking groups.
I'm Alonzo Chalepah, and I'm a member of the Apache tribe, and I serve as a consultant for the culture program here, and I'm also a elected official in the vice chairman seat here currently. Serving as a consultant for the culture program, I tend to all of the aspects culturally and historically for the tribe here in the office. And language preservation is one of my priorities.
Great.
We as the Apache tribe of Oklahoma are a small group of Native Americans who are related to the other Apache nations primarily only by language, where we have similarities, and we are quite different from our neighbors who are the Chiricahuas, where there are only just a few similarities of their language as opposed to ours. So the identity is a strong marker of identity of our people in language. So that is our separateness from the other 9 nations of Apaches that exist today. The language of the Apache tribe here, in association with the other 9 nations, is somewhat similar, but our closest relatives that we had always claimed by tradition and also by language would be the Lipans, the Hickory, and the Sarcee in Canada, where there are strong characteristics and similarities of the language, as opposed to the far western Apaches, where again we have some similarities but a little bit more distant. But however, we've always had a traditional knowledge of knowing that we were only a part of a larger nation of people. But again, with the Apache tribe, and the closest was the Lipan, and our association goes back in historic times where intermarriage and the language kept a separateness, where the Lipans and our group of Apaches had very strong similarities in the language. We had also used quite extensively the use of the hand sign language, where we were very useful in the sign language, where we had used this sign language among ourselves with the Lipans, and as neighbors came and gone, we used this with the other tribes of Plains Indians, which they were well versed in the universal sign language, was very influenced for our tribes. So the Apache tribe had practiced this kind of languages, the sign language and also the verbal language, where we had strong ties with these people. We stay in association with these people. We've always known each other for a great length of time, and what I mean by a great length of time is probably beyond historic times. So we call the Lipans and the Hickoryas and the Sarcee people are very close relatives. So linguistically, these people are very much involved in understanding where we are at and what we are doing on our programs, and it always has been like that culturally too.
Now, while Mr. Chalepah is not a fully fluent speaker, he understands and appreciates the language quite well and is adept at reading and writing it. And he's also very good at understanding the cultural aspects of the language, as you'll see in this next segment. The next thing I asked him, as I usually do when I'm interviewing a guest, is I asked him to teach us how to greet someone in the Apache language. It turns out that the answer is pretty complex, and I'm going to show you the whole rather long, involved answer because because it is complicated. There isn't a simple answer to it, and because it brings up a very interesting example of how language and social culture interact.
To greet someone of our own tribe, it's very complex and it's sometimes sensitive to explain. Instances come up to where there's a separateness of men and women. The genders are separated. And there's high respect when at rare times male and females would meet. Okay, for instance, I myself meeting another gentleman, we wouldn't greet as today's standards might understand. We would say, it's a good day. Or we would say, how are you? We have no word for hello. And we have no word for goodbye. It's more or less like, we'll see you later in our language. So as a man-to-man meeting, or even a brother would be the same. But when the greater the age, the atmosphere would change in the greeting. Like if I had a grandson, I could talk to him in any manner that I would want to. That is, being more relaxed in that. A friend is also the same way. If I was to greet a friend who was not a relative of mine, I could greet him in any manner that I would, humorously, seriously. Now, as opposed to my sister, I would rarely talk to her, but she would probably be my link to the rest of the females of the Apacheans, as a messenger as to my cousins, my aunts, my distant grandmothers. She would be that link, and she would also see to the needs of what a brother may need: food, assistance, help. If he ain't married, she would be that link to help provide. To a sister, I would rarely talk to her, meet her, and greet her only at very sensitive times, such as death in the family, where we are allowed to communicate some, and I believe the biggest link of communication would be during ceremonies or religion, where we would talk about the ceremony or the religion as to what do they want to do in this religion or church, or what do they want to do in this ceremony for their son or whatever. And there's the communication there. Communication with the mother would be limited only to where most cultures and standards are very open as today. In our times, we were more or less closed in with a mother because we would have another link with her to where we could expose our heart to her, our wants, our needs, our desires, our pleasures, even our pains, our sufferings, and we are allowed to discuss this with our mother, and more openly to our fathers, our uncles, and our grandfathers. We would discuss that at a great length with them, because we keep this separateness of genders in communications. There is no greetings to talk to your mother-in-law. I wouldn't talk to my mother-in-law out of respect for her. I wouldn't talk to my mother-in-law's sisters. I wouldn't talk to any of my mother-in-law's female side of the family. I would use my wife to be that link for communication
I was going to ask you about that. When a man talks to his wife, that must be an exception. Clearly, it's okay to talk to your spouse, right? How would you greet your wife?
I would probably greet her with, of course, respect and common everyday language, and probably in a more gentle tone, perhaps. Yes, and with the wife, it would be somewhat different because Apache see that the wife is a special person in life because it's to accumulate more life, and therefore these people are to be generous and kind and respectable to each other. So the wife would be, one of the closest links of communications of females. And the next one close to that would probably be her sisters or even my own sister. Because our people take to the wife's family of her sisters. There's close communications with sister-in-laws, but not with my wife's aunts or her grandmothers, and etc.
So interesting. Language shows so much of a culture. Can you tell us in Apache what any of these greetings would sound like? Like, for instance, you said the first one you mentioned, if you ran into another Apache gentleman about your same age and status, you might say it's a fine day or something like that. How would that be pronounced in Apache?
Yiskon. If I was back 100 years, 200, 300 in the camp, or even here at the office, I can say, Yiskon. And what I'm saying is it's a good morning. And he would hear me, and he would say it probably is, or yes. He would say, ha, he would agree. That's the most common answer. Or if he's walking by the next morning, I might not say it's a good morning. I might say, oh, not this thing. And that means, how are you? And then he might say, Toka, idisi. That means, I'm okay. And then we'd agree, saying yes, or ha, that's the common. And also that is used among the males. And that is most common also among communication to wife and sisters.
Among themselves.
It's a good morning. You're not saying good morning because that's not in our language. Good morning. That aspect. But you can ask a question saying that it is a good morning, or it's a good day. Comes wrong. Means it's a good day today. And they would say yes, or if they're feeling ill, they might not say it's a good day. They may be feeling poorly and addressed in a different way, but that opens the door. These kinds of greetings opens the door to people of how they are feeling that day with their answer. If you tell them it's a good day, well then either they'll say yes, it is a good day, or else sometimes they'll say they're feeling poorly, or they're feeling sad, or else they'll say they're very happy, So those are some of the greetings that's the only two greetings that we use. We don't have a word for good night or anything like that. We only have words for like how are you, it's a good morning, or else ain't it a good day. And those are the most common used greetings among both genders and all ages, because you want to know about how the day is coming, and you want to know how these people are, and those are the response.
That's great, very. Mr. Chalepah explained to me that these traditional restrictions on communication have persisted even as Apaches have started talking to each other mainly in English. They still obey these same social restrictions, at least the more traditional ones do, which I think is very interesting. So it's a very deep-seated sort of language and culture issue. Next, he went on to explain the current status of the language and the tribe's efforts to preserve it.
Currently, we have 3 fluent speakers today left in the tribe, and these 3 fluent speakers can speak without using any gestures that is not Apache. They are total all Apache speaking. Currently also there are a greater number of passive speakers who would understand at different levels about the language. And I believe, like my generation, my level is more becoming more and more aware of learning more of the language by seeing each other, using it at a ceremony or at a religious practice, and rarely would be exposed in the public though. But among ourselves, you know, we use the language quite a bit in our ceremonies and in our prayers, and it's common. And a lot of the hand sign language is used also. The younger generations are probably our focus, and what we develop, what we accumulate currently is going to be their resource for the future. And currently our language program here wants to perpetuate keeping the evidence available for a resource of our younger people, because right now we had developed the beginning stages of a tribal dictionary, and also by tribal resolution we have an alphabet, and there's just only a very few people who know how to use the alphabet today. And the alphabet was established, I believe, 2 years ago, and the dictionary is an ongoing process. So we had begun the language program perhaps around 92, where we accumulated probably some 3,000 words right now. That's on video, audio, and hand script. We had done this with the assistance of some representatives of the Modern Languages Department out of OU, where we have a linguist that would come down and somewhat assist in any way that they could, providing mainly technical work and providing a word list that we would draft, where she would put this on hard copy, and then we'd bring the elders in and work at these in that manner, because I believe one of our goals right now is to focus on accumulating all that we could in all manners of the language itself. We found out that the language is so vast, it's endless, and that we want to gather the language in any form that we can, because based on what we're doing today is going to be used tomorrow by the younger generations. So we want to accumulate not only just words, but short phrases, and now we're on sentences, and we're looking at short stories, paragraphs if they exist, in structuring some kind of work that might be workable on paper for elementary levels too. So we try to use this product at whatever level it may be right now currently for usage in our packages of our youth camp material and our youth trip material, and we're planning on having a picnic, and we could use the names of these foods, names of places, names of people, names of chiefs, and things of such that we would all put into the packet for the youth.
What are the main
things that are linked to the language that people need to be able to know in the Apache language? Can you name a few ceremonies or types of activities?
Yes, I would say that focusing on this from the elders is that the identity markers that make an Apache an Apache, which would comprise of a number of things. Number one is religion, where we have a medicine bundle and the Native American church. The ceremonies include our Nai Shamana Digde'e, which is the Apache Blackfeet Society. And of course, the language itself is a marker itself, and using these in these aspects, they become more familiar. For instance, an example is at the youth camp where we have these elders there, where they will say a few things and sing songs in Apache language. They will sing hymns, they will sing animal songs, music, and they will hear other words from the Blackfeet Society, where there's language in some of the songs there. So you see, we try to expose all of these to not only just the youth, but also to our fellow tribal members.
Yeah, you mentioned music, songs. I think a lot of times that's an easy way for people to learn a little bit of a language, because somehow it's easier sometimes to learn to sing along with a song than to have that everyday conversational kind of language that you're talking about. Are there quite a few people that can sing the songs but don't really speak the language?
Yes, but I believe that's a learning process, a stage to where they're learning,
Right.
because once they mastered learning the music, then they know that they had accomplished something, part of the language, because many of the songs in the Native American church comprise of using a lot of language in our songs. And just off the top of my head, I would say there's probably around 200 songs that I know of that's involved with language. And no telling how many there are about the hand game songs, the lullabies, the animal songs, gospel songs, Blackfeet, and it goes on. And, but I believe I can say that there is a growing number of participation of all ages and genders in these cultural aspects that identify the Apache tribe.
You mentioned that there are 3 really fully fluent speakers still. Are any of them tutoring, like on a one-to-one basis, or maybe teaching a class? Or are you doing more kind of you're building up your dictionary and that kind of work?
I believe they are understanding that they're focused on trying to expose the many different ways of using the language, where we have a class here every week for 4 hours. This is funded by our higher ed program. Elders at a time to work on a word list of where that is in part my responsibility is to accumulate a word list or a phrase list or a sentence list, where we would bring these elders in, and then we would document it on audio, video, and hand script.
Finally, I asked Mr. Chalepah if he had any closing thoughts. What do you really think the future holds for the Apache language?
Well, first of all, I think I might feel like an individual called Ishi, where I know that I can understand and speak and write the language, and I have ideas of the possibility of preserving it. It is my job right now in this office to attract the language to tribal members of all ages and genders, and to have them to carry on. I am quite comfortable myself as an individual of what I had learned, because I know and I understand the language. I just have trouble in putting the pieces of it together, but to hear another one speak it, I know what's going on all the time. But this kind of a conversation to exist with me and my generation doesn't exist to a limit. I mean, to a degree it does. I can communicate with a few other tribal members with short phrases and a few words. And the biggest of all is with the use of hand sign language, where my cousins, who are my brothers, I can make sign language to them, and they understand at our ceremonies thoroughly and at a good long length. We can go for hours and hours and be using sign language and not say nothing at all.
Is there any organized program to teach more of the youth the sign language? Is that part of your youth camp activities, for instance?
It's a small part, but I think we are going to have plans on enhancing that, because sign language is something that we don't even know which came first, the verbal or the hand sign language, in the origins of that. Well, I don't know, but we do know that it's been with us for a great length of time, and we do need to share this unique language with the younger generations, or any, generation.
I would imagine you could talk to some of the older Kiowas and Comanches also in that same language, couldn't you? And
Yes, I
understand.
do. Yes, I do. I can communicate with some Kiowas and Comanches using sign language and not using my language at all, and they understand. It surprises a lot of people when they see us.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us tonight. See you next time on Wordpath.
Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene madaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene madaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene madaone kita. Na hene yo hene, na hene yo hene, ana magwana kita, wa pene madaone kita.